G'day guys, welcome back. My name is Wildkard. Yes, if obviously it's 3rd of April here in Australia, but for the rest of you, it is still 2nd of April, and I would like to take this opportunity to say Happy Liberation Day, everyone, right? A year ago on the 2nd of April is when President Trump announced the tariffs and crashed the world stock market. Boy, I bought Nvidia at $83 that day. That was a great day, all right? And sold too early. But anyway, at that time, everybody thought things couldn't get possible to get any worse. And fast forward a year, we are sitting here at a time when there's an escalation in the Middle East for a war on Iran, and it's shut off like a fifth of the world. And apparently, we're gonna run out of fuel here in Australia soon. Everybody's having like emergency meetings and stuff, and apparently the NATO is gonna get disbanded, or America's gonna withdraw from it, and then the world's gonna get into World War III or something. Who knows, right? And then only for people in the other parts of America, right? Launching the Artemis 2 mission, launching literal astronauts back to the moon like it's the 1960s again, right? Like, we did not learn 50 years ago that launching things to the moon is a negative return on investment. Somehow, 50 years later, we think that launching people back to the moon is gonna, maybe it's not for money this time. Maybe it's not for money. Maybe it's not for, military strategic, a strategy like they were thinking in the 1960s, because, you got to beat the Russians to the moon for a strategic conquest for the moon before the Russian does it. Maybe it's not for that anymore, but it's actually looking for a way to escape the planet. Should President Trump blow up the whole planet for some reason, we are looking at just absolute batshit crazy times we're living in. But anyway, sometimes I do feel like I'm living in the Matrix, or maybe the Truman Show. Sometimes I don't know if you have this feeling. I feel like when I walk around in public, the people that walk past me, I just feel like I've seen people before. I've seen them before. Like, everybody just look weirdly familiar, right? And it's not like, it's not like someone that, it's not like, I'm seeing someone that's exactly the same, because that's too obvious. That's too obvious. I'm living the Matrix, right? It's literally like, I feel like I've seen this person before, but without a beard. Or I've seen this person before, but it did not wear glasses, right? That's the feeling I'm getting every day. Maybe I'm going crazy. Maybe this is something that you're experiencing as well. But hey, let me know. If you're feeling things are getting a little bit out of hand in our sense of reality here in on this planet. But hey, look, one thing that really brings me to back on Earth and keeps me grounded is the game of rugby. Okay, ever since the mighty Wallabies beat the Springboks at Johannesburg, my crippling depression has been completely cured. So it doesn't matter what happens around the world. All I have to do is watch some highlights from the Joburg Miracle, and I am happy as a camper. All right, happy as ever. So anyway, that is coming up later this year. But we're gonna talk about the news for this week. First of all, the Springboks. Obviously, Erasmus, after losing to the Wallabies, and with England that's coming in July, he is always thinking 3 steps ahead of everybody else. So news came out. This guy, Joe Lewis, a former performance analyst for Eddie Jones and for Bothwick, it's been hired to work for the Springboks. Now, this is actually really interesting because it doesn't really matter what Joe actually gonna bring to the Springboks as in terms of his technical, technical, like not technical, in terms of his analysis. He's gonna bring a bucket loads of data to Rassie Erasmus, and this is gonna be a lot of Northern Hemisphere focused data. Something that I felt like maybe the Springboks, playing the Rugby Championship, will have more data on the Southern Hemisphere teams, and not that much data on the teams from the North, right? Whereas Joe, being basically entrenched in that Six Nations setup, would have a lot of, I think, a lot of interesting data that's going to be presented to Dr. Rassie, and it actually makes me wonder how this is going to change the game plan for the Springboks, because we know that Rassie Erasmus is a data-driven coach, and what Joe's going to bring. Like, is he gonna what's he actually gonna obviously he's got his own data. He might not have all the data. He might get some extra data. He might get some extra insight on how the Six Nation teams like England is interpreting the data, and that's different from how he's interpreting it. Maybe he gets a different perspective on the data. But it'd just be interesting to see how this is gonna drive the Springboks, and how they're gonna maybe this is gonna change their style. Is it gonna go back to the kicking game more? Or are they going to be coming up with something completely different that we haven't even seen before, right? And which will be very exciting, because we do have the 4th of July showdown coming up with England, and we've got the Irish here in Australia. So yeah, it's going to be exciting build up to a lot of exciting rugby coming in later this year. Anyway, Super Rugby this weekend. Let's quickly go through last weekend. Yeah, some interesting results. Moana Pacifica versus Highlanders. The highlight of this game was the power outage. It was like something went out. The TV broadcast went out, and but it was weird because the camera went out, but there was still sound. So you could still hear the referee talking to the players because the whole broadcast was cut out. But yeah, this was completely for half the game was not available. But the big one on Friday was obviously Brumbies versus Waratahs. This was my review was that yes, the Waratahs won with goal kicking. They kicked 3 goals in the second half. I thought that I didn't like the decision. I felt like the score was leveled at 21 points to 21, and after kicking the first goal, I can understand that to get yourself ahead. But the second kick, you're not really materialistically changing the state of the game. You're just getting yourself 6 points ahead instead of 3 points ahead, and all you do, the opposition still have to score a try. Now a converter try to win the game, and it's still 10 minutes left on the clock, and basically you are praying for another penalty to really get yourself out of reach. And I really didn't like that from the way that the Waratahs played. Of course, the Brumbies did give away another penalty that saw the Waratahs convincingly, pull themselves out of reach. But the Brumbies did score a try at the end. Should that penalty wasn't given, the third penalty wasn't given to the Waratahs, they could have lost this one by 1, right? So it's one of those things that, yeah, I talked about. It's kind of like kick and pray, right? You're kicking goals and you're praying for the opposition to give you penalties. You don't have the agency to really push for an outcome that is that you can control and you can manipulate. You're basically hoping for the referee to blow it your way, which I don't really like. But yeah, I will talk about more about this weekend after the Chiefs game, and I think that the Waratahs have a pretty good chance this weekend against the Chiefs if they don't kick penalties. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see for that one. The Hurricanes blow out the Reds at the Tin Can on the weekend as well. Completely class a little bit. Very disappointing for the Reds. The Blues beat the Jurors 40 points to 15. I think the Jurors was pretty close as well in the second half. It was again, they kicked the 3 points and then only to never, kind of like the Waratahs did against the Blues. They kicked the early 3 points coming out of the second half and then just never really regained the momentum and allowed the Blues to run away with, again, I think the halftime score was pretty close. I think the Blues were just barely leading. But yeah, it was just, again, a little bit disappointing with goal kicking. And finally, the Western Force versus the Chiefs. I thought everybody probably expected this to be a blowout, but the Western Force really hung in there. Didn't kick any penalties, which was really, really good. They had plenty of opportunity to do so as well. Kept the pressure on. Damian McKenzie, I think he missed the crucial penalty near the front again. So, yeah, shaky performance once again for the DMAC, but the Chiefs was able to overpower with their overwhelming experience with their All Blacks. So this weekend is going to be a short weekend, only 3 games. Crusaders versus Fijian and Jura. This will be the final game at the Orange Theory Stadium, or whatever they call it now. Apparently, because they got a new stadium that's built out. Apparently, 15,000 people, not that big, but it's really nice looking, fancy stadium. I think it's got a roof as well. It's built up in the middle of the CBD, and the Orange Theory Stadium was built after the earthquake, so it was a temporary stadium anyway. So they're gonna move away from that. But yeah, it's been quite some time, and the Crusaders finally back with the real stadium. The Chiefs versus the Waratahs. This could be a pretty big one. We'll look at the lineup in a minute. And then finally the Reds versus the Western Force. Yeah, just pretty light weekend. But it'll be interesting to see how the Waratahs perform against the Chiefs. So yeah, the lineup for the Waratahs against the Chiefs. The Chiefs actually have had quite a few injuries, including DMAC. So let's look at the Chiefs team first. So DMAC is out. They got quite a few. Nana Sotutu is out. A few pretty big injuries in the back line for the Chiefs. And yeah, we'll see how this is going to go. So coming in first, Ollie Norris. It's almost only Taukei'aho, number 2. I think it's Brendan O'Neill. But yeah, O'Neill comes in number 3. Josh Law comes in number 4. Tupuvai comes in at number 5. The All Blacks in the locks. Sun Penny Finau comes in number 6. Luke Jacobson number 7. Boshier, what's his first name? Comes in at number 8. What's his name? Xavier Rowe, I think, comes in at number 9. Luke Jacob comes in at number 10. DMAC was playing 15 anyway, so he wasn't like last week against the Chiefs. Not the Chiefs. What's his name? The Western Force. So Jacob has been a 10 since DMAC returned, pretty much, I think. So really not that big of an issue without DMAC in terms of playmaking. I think Jacob has done pretty well for the Chiefs there. Tamoe Falau, the former guy with Moana Pacifica, comes in at number 11. Quinton Tupaia comes in number 12. Leroy Carter gets moved to number 13. The winger, the All Black winger, gets moved to number 13. He, obviously with Nana Sotutu injured, this is interesting. Leroy Carter, I don't think he's that good as a offload player. I don't think his offload game is that good. So this could potentially be something that the Waratahs exploits, and I don't think his defense is that good either. And that's the reason why he was. I think I'm very surprised they have him at 13. But anyway, Narawa comes in at 14, and then Combase Fabling comes in at number 15. So yeah, interesting to have Leroy Carter at 13. I did not expect that. But then who else could they even put there, right? Like, didn't they have that Rona guy? Is he injured or is he left? But yeah, interesting to have Carter at 13. Comes in number 16, McAllister number 17, Prophet number 18, Dyer number 19, Akoi number 20, Simon Parker the locks are so stacked. Parker's on the bench. Number 21, Cortez Ratama. Number 22, Brown. Number 23, Sinkinson for a debut. So yeah, that's the Chiefs lineup. I do think that the 4-pack is quite strong, but the back line definitely can be exploited. Definitely can be exploited for the Waratahs. So coming in for the Waratahs this weekend for the Chiefs, and obviously Suali'i is still injured. So yeah, Tom Lambert comes in number 1 for the Waratahs. Ethan Dubbins number 2. Daniel Botha number 3. Matt Phillip, the captain, number 4. Miles Amatasero number 5. Clement Halaholo number 6. Charlie Gamble returns to the start, cut number 7. P. Samu finish up the front forwards at number 8. In the back line now, Teddy Wilson has been called up to start at number 9. Jack DeBrusini at number 10. Max Jorgensen, number 11, once again. Joey Walton moves back to the 12 jersey with Tristan Riley back in the forward at number 13. Andrew Callaway gets added back at number 14. And Sid Riley, outstanding for the Waratahs off the tee, comes in on at number 15. On the reserves now, we've got Flaufa Ngata, number 16. Jack Barrett comes in number 17. Seal Sifa Amon comes in number 18. Angus Blythe comes in number 19. Jamie Adamson gets dropped down to the bench for Charlie Gamble at number 20. Jay Gordon, the veteran, comes off the bench at number 21. Jack Bowen comes in number 22. And finally, George Pullman finishing off at number 23. It's interesting they didn't go for the 6-2 on the setup here, because I think that the Chiefs forwards are really quite strong. With Parker, triple All Blacks locks. Simon Parker come in at potentially a lock or even a blind side. A lot of pressure in the forward pack, and I can see what they're thinking here with George Pullman as an extra center. But do you really need an extra center? I guess you could try put more pressure on Leroy Carter with an extra center. No Edmund here. That's interesting. So, yeah, interesting here. But then again, they probably didn't know that D-Mac was injured, right? Before they made these selections. But, yeah, interesting. Interesting is how this is going to go. I hope the Waratahs win this one and don't just kick a bunch of goals. But anyway, moving on. Charlie Ewels has revealed that he almost had to amputate his leg, apparently, with a infection on his foot. So apparently he had a cut, and the cut got infected. It was so bad that they thought they had to amputate his foot, and it was just like, what happened? Like, did he just got cut and and just got some like turf or something got into it, some bacteria from the turf got into it or something? But boy, like maybe they had the fertilizers from the grass got into it or something. But boy, that is concerning. If that is the case, then yeah, the player's got to be really careful getting cuts on the field. Like, my goodness, that's scary how he almost lost a leg. And then Tamati Williams, speaking of infections, has a back infection. Discitis is the name of the infection, basically an infection in the spine. This is not due to a cut. This is due to basically stuff that when he ate something or some bacteria got inside of his bloodstream that ended up on his spine that has caused this infection. So he's going to be out for quite some time as well, for the remainder of the Super Rugby season at least. So yeah. So excuse me. Ugh. So we're talking about how Razor Robertson was sacked, and there was some talks about potential player revolts as one of the reasons for it, and led by Ardie Savea. Some clarity came out this week that, in fact today, that Ardie Savea was not actually the one that complained about Razor as a head coach. I was a bit surprised that Ardie Savea would do that in the first place, to be honest, but they came out and basically said Ardie Savea was not happy with his contract with New Zealand Rugby, but it was not relating to Razor and the coaching stuff. So it was, yes, he's looking to end his contract early with New Zealand Rugby. Yeah, he doesn't really want to play in New Zealand anymore. I feel like he wants to potentially play for Samoa. He felt the affinity to, play for the country of his heritage maybe at some point. But yeah, he's talking to New Zealand about leaving early, but it's not regarding the coaching stuff for Razor Robertson. This weekend as well, I forgot this, Zach Lomax is debuting for the Western Force. He is a rugby league convert, and he's going to be coming off the bench at number 23, so potentially an outside centre or a winger. We'll have to wait and see, probably just a winger. But, it's going to be interesting to see how the Western Force is going to use him, because outside centre is quite technical. They don't want him to put out there to... But then again, the Western Force do need a better centre, to be honest. Curly Bill and George um, George Bridge is not really cutting it, to be honest, for me last week. Whether you move, George Bridge to 12 and Curly Bill to fullback, or Curly Bill, George Bridge to fullback, or maybe to the wing, and then have Lomax more of a punching at, maybe even have him at 12. I don't know. Be interesting to see where they put him. Very interesting to see this one. Moving on. So yeah, Mick Byrne has been sacked essentially by Fijian Rugby Union. He's the one that taken Fiji to beat Australia in the 2023 Rugby World Cup, and he took the Australian. Is he the one? Yeah, I think, was he the one? But yeah, he's been let go, so they're gonna have to bring someone else in, taking a page out of the Wallabies, Fijian Rugby, and taking a page out of the All Blacks. Just sack your coach 18 months before the Rugby World Cup is becoming quite the norm nowadays. So, oh no, wait, he wasn't, right? He was the other guy, Ravolo, whatever his name was. The other guy was he's taken over in April. But yeah, hasn't found satisfactory results, I guess. Despite his good work for Fijian and Jura. So another big injury hit the Arceus Snyman once again. Snyman has been basically plagued with injuries after the Rugby World Cup, and then he basically was out for like a couple of years before returning. And now he's injured again, potentially for quite some time, an ACL injury, so he might be injured until the Rugby World Cup again next year. So yeah, that is pretty terrible. Tom Hooper is looking at extending already his deal with the Chiefs. He's got 2 years left still, and he's already looking at extending the contract. So the Chiefs are really happy with him, and he's talked about the one reason why he moved over to the Chiefs, because he felt like he hit the ceiling in Australia under the Brumbies. Yeah. I mean, he's only played for the Brumbies for 3 years or something, and he's already hit the ceiling. I mean, the Brumbies don't have anything else to offer him. Anyway, Big Willie. Everybody knows I love Big Willie. He's unfortunately going to be out for the rest of the season with an Achilles tendon rupture, and he's going to be out for 6 months. So won't be seeing him till at least November. That's pretty sad. So yeah, we'll talk about the stadium's going to be taken away for the Crusaders. So it was announced that the Wallabies will play a warm-up match against Ireland in Canberra next year before a Hong Kong game. So that's interesting. 13 days, 2 weeks before the Hong Kong game against Ireland at home World Cup. Let's get half the team injured before the kickoff, I guess. Anyway, Eben Nesbitt has finished his suspension, so he will be out playing soon. Brodie Retallick is on track to beat the try scoring record in the Japan League. He scored 14 tries in 13 games, and there is still 5 games to go, and the record is currently sitting at 18. So there's a chance that Brodie Retallick could be breaking that, the big boy. And finally, the Bill Sweeney, the CEO of the RFU, England Rugby, came out and said that he's not talking with Andy Farrell to potentially recruit him. So yeah, no contact with Andy Farrell. Maybe they do have a contact, they just don't want to tell you, to make sure that Borthwick don't get too upset about looking at replacing him. And yeah, anyway, that's the news for this week. Let me know your thoughts. Like, comment, and subscribe. I'll see you guys tomorrow for the Crusaders versus Enduro game. Thanks for watching. Have a good one. Cheers.